Hello everybody and welcome to Chess 24. This is the roundup show for Game 6 of the World Championship between Magnus Carlsen, the reigning champ, and Vishy Anand, the challenger. I'm delighted to be joined by my partner in crime, Mr. Jan Gustafsson, one of Germany's best ever players. And I'm referring to chess exclusively, football, basketball, all of that stuff, terrible. But when it comes to chess, you know a thing or two.
I know a thing or two. I know less than those guys who played the game today, but without giving away too much, there was quite some drama in this game, wasn't it?
What an amazing game. Now, there are a lot of viewers who might not know the result.
Neither do I, but let's have a look at the game.
Let's have a look and actually see what happened. Game 6 now, a quick, up-to-date summary of what's happened so far in the match. All things are square. 2.5 all, a win for each player. The rest have been draws. It's been a tense match. Vishy certainly seemed to be more in it compared to last year. So let's see how he fared against Magnus Carlsen with black today in Game 6. Well, Carlsen stuck to his guns with 1e4, as did Vishy.
Yeah, my first point is already, this is a strange match in a way in that both sides are playing pressure with white. Normally you say in modern chess it's easier to be black to neutralize. It doesn't look like that in this match. Vishy looks fantastically prepared when he's white with 1 d4. Carlsen hasn't really found a way to get out of the opening, been in trouble in each of the games. With white, Carlsen plays e4, and it looks like he's been reaching his types of position. Not necessarily an opening advantage, but positions he's happy playing in both games. So Anand went c5, which I like. I think it's a better practical choice than e5 against Carlsen.
Absolutely, and we get a Sicilian the same as in Game 4, I believe, knight f3, e6. In that game we saw Carlsen play g3, but Vishy really had no problems coming out of the opening, if I remember correctly. He may be slightly inferior, but nothing too drastic.
No, the thing is, g3 is the kind of move you make when you're facing a surprise.
Yes.
Like, he knows this is solid, is going to lead to a slow positional battle. But it's not the kind of move to repeat. And now, second time around, you might trick me once, you ain't gonna trick me twice. e6 is no longer a surprise, so Carlsen is ready with the main move, 3d4.
An open Sicilian.
Open Sicilian from Magnus Carlsen.
Haven't seen that in a while from him. Takes, and the move a6.
Small surprise there. Nothing Anand has played much in his career. There's the occasional rapid game against a weaker opponent. He has played a bit of knight c6, queen c7, these setups. But not much of a6, really. The Khan, do you call it the Khan?
The Khan, yeah. The can or cannot. That's the big question.
Those who can't do teach.
That's right. a6 played
Nothing
by
to
Vishy.
do with the Karo-Khan.
Nothing to do with the Karo-Khan, no. And in this position, White's got a variety of moves. I prefer to play the more simple knight c3 here, which is totally fine. The move bishop d3 is by far the main line in this position. But Carlsen went for the other very important move, c4, taking advantage of the fact that he can establish...
Very much in his style.
Yeah,
right?
this Maroczy structure, these two pawns in the center. So after c4, well, knight f6, knight c3 is pretty normal. And now we reach an interesting moment, Jan, where perhaps Vishy could have played something different.
Well, here, yeah, it's already time to start talking X's and O's. The main move here, and for a good reason, I believe, is queen to c7. The problem, I believe, from a Vishy match strategy standpoint is after queen c7, a3, there is no way to avoid kind of a slow Maroczy headshot type of game. Like, let's say, whatever, b6, bishop e2, bishop b7, f3, d6, these kinds of positions. And while objectively this might be fine for black, or you could argue about it, it's more of Carlsen's ballpark, I would think. While Vishy's match strategy has been to play concretely, reach direct positions, not this maneuvering grounds that Carlsen is so happy.
So he played bishop b4.
Which is an established move, but theoretically its standing is not as good as queen c7. And clearly Carlsen going for this line, he was ready here.
Yeah, and he played one of his favourite moves in the Sicilian in any opening, actually, to play this move, queen to d3. Likes this, I'm a big fan of it, played it in a number of games. I remember a very important game against Boris Gelfand in the Sicilian. I remember a game last year in the World Championships, although that said, against Vichy he got a terrible position out of the opening.
Different opening, but he liked this move.
He likes the move.
And the good thing is, in this position, is also a good move. It's the theoretical main line. The line we all grew up with, or I grew up with, is the move e5 here. Knight e4, queen g4. This is a trick I learned as a kid, and you get very excited. Knight takes c3, a3.
Yeah.
But now, in the cold eyes of Houdini, after bishop f8, b takes c3, and let's say d6, so queen a5, black is fine.
Yeah.
So can't do that. Queen d3 is a good move, overprotecting c3 and threatening e5 now. Black has to do something.
Well, he went for knight c6, which, of course, is one of the main moves. But now, after knight takes c6, and, well, really the only move that makes sense is b takes c6. What he did in I think b takes c6 runs into a very awkward e5.
Yeah, this is terrible.
So you have to go d takes c6, but this allows, of course, a queen exchange, and then this move e5. And already we were getting commentaries that this position is quite unpleasant for black.
I like the way Vladimir Kramnik put it in the live commentary. He said, maybe it's holdable for black, but the starting position is not bad enough to go for this deliberately.
Yeah.
So that was his impression, and that's the one criticism, which of course could be right, could be wrong, but that people had for Vichy's style a bit in the last match, and also that you could apply for his opening strategy here, that he seems not happy, but quite willing to enter slightly worse endgames against Carlsen, which he feels he can hold, which might not be a good strategy.
It might actually just be wrong as well, because as practice has shown, he's lost a lot of these endings already, so very strange to a certain extent. Now, after
of course, it's always easier said than done. You got to make moves, right? And after bishop b4, queen d3, it's already not so simple, but still, to prepare this, you need to be willing to suffer quite a bit.
Well, here he played knight d7, which I think is the best move. I think knight e4 now runs into the cute a3. And the point is takes. You can't win the pawn because now a4.
Very strong move, threatening f3.
And picking up this knight. And the knight really lacks scope.
Yeah, I was looking at this. You can go knight e4, but then bishop e3. And there's still f3 is a threat. You have to do some
f6.
Fancy maneuvers like f6, but white is just much better. Bishop d3, let's say knight to g5 takes on f6, and the extra black pawn doesn't really matter if we look at the dark square weaknesses, the king in the center. This is just a dream position for white.
So he went knight d7, and now bishop f4, which I think is a good move. f4 is way too loose on the dark squares for me, and it just doesn't feel right
No
at all.
need, you want to go bishop f4, long castles, threatening knight e4, kind of forcing bishop c3, which happened now.
So you have to take that, because you can't allow this knight e4, and then the move king to c7. We were all expecting this. And then this is where Carlsen really started to take over the initiative, I think, in this position. He played a move that I like very much, h4.
Somehow a built-in initiative. I agree, I like h4. You do have the two bishops, you have a space advantage. The only question really is black solid enough that he can create some kind of fortress? And h4 makes life tougher there, gaining more space, planning h5, creating some targets maybe on g7, maybe on h7. Not easy to hold this.
And here b6 was played, which I expected, but in retrospect I was thinking maybe h5 was an interesting idea, because now after the rook comes out you can always play g6. Yes, you weaken your dark squares considerably, but that said, you stop all of the nonsense that happened in the game. So I think that's definitely a move worthy of consideration.
I agree. All these choices are tough. If you go h5 with black, if you go h6 after white's h5, if you do nothing, they all have their drawbacks, but I agree. I think h5 was very much worth considering.
Anyway, he played b6, and now we see another very accurate move by Magnus to play h5, gaining space, threatening to weaken the structure with h6, sometimes just using that pawn really as a blocker, because when the rook comes out to attack g7, f7, the pawn on h5 does a nice job just to suffocate black a bit. So h5, and then Vichy did settle for h6. Clearly he was worried that after bishop b7, and now either rook h3 or h6 straight away, g6, rook h3, there are some problems defending this f7 pawn.
There are some problems. I had the feeling, and I could be wrong about this, that h6, the move Vichy played, makes white's life easier. Because now you have the target on g7, which is easy to attack, it's easy to build up. Well, if you don't play h6 as black, it's a bit more difficult for white. Do you want to go h6? Do you want to go rook h3, rook g3? Then black always has g6. I wasn't a big fan, but I am not sure if that's an objective consideration, because in any case, black's position is unpleasant.
Magnus Carlsen, rook h3 was also possible there, but we see that after Carlsen's bishop e7, he came up with a new idea, really interesting idea that I have to admit during the game, during the commentary, I didn't consider, and that was to actually swing this d rook over to g3 and then bring this rook over to g4, creating quite an unpleasant threat against the g7 pawn.
No, you figure he doesn't need the rook on the d file, it would only get exchanged, and he doesn't need to cover those squares, so why not use it to put pressure on the king side?
I think that move there shows immediately the difference, not just between Magnus Carlsen and perhaps others, but Magnus Carlsen and other grandmasters or grandmaster level. I really think that move is out of the scope of players of my level, actually. I think you almost instantaneously play rook h3 or rook h4 here. Because, you kind of, there's something deep down in your soul that says you want to keep it.
Who knows, right? Yeah.
But rook d3, I have to say, it didn't even occur to me. So it just goes to show how much of a difference there is in level between us. But okay, rook d3, he played c5. Again, I love this move even more because if knight c5, you can just push it up to d4. And suddenly the knight doesn't do a great job on c5.
No, knight doesn't belong there. Yeah. Black has to put the pawn on c5 to free his bishop.
Which he did, rook g3, and now another cute little trick is that you have to go with the a rook, because if you go with the h rook, that runs into bishop d3 and bishop h7. And it's basically
knight f8 to stop that, bishop h6.
Right, exactly, taking advantage of the pin. So rook a g8 only move, and bishop d3 anyway, knight f8. But it was around here we were receiving some tweets, and Ishgiri was saying, you know what, I quite like this defense by black. You're going to play g5, you're going to sacrifice a pawn and maybe get into a position with opposite color bishops. But it's really here again where we see Carlsen in his element. I think this phase of the game, the next few moves, he played pretty well, actually.
The next move was a touch of class.
Yeah. Bishop e3 is just it's just a classy move, isn't it? Because
prophylaxis. You stop g5 or any shenanigans. You're telling black, okay, do something.
Well, he had to do this, but now the point is you go rook h5, and now the bishop is not on pre.
Exactly. Rook h5, very pleasing move to the eye. I thought keeping everything under control, even stopping h5, h4. Yeah, Carlsen is good in these positions. That's why we keep saying don't go for those endings. Of course, easier said than done, but not fun here.
Bishop c6 by Vichy I didn't mind, and now another very good move, in my opinion, by Magnus to move bishop c2. The point is you can't take this pawn on h6. That actually doesn't win because of the tactical blow knight takes e5. Now,
remember that tactic.
Remember that tactic, because this is important. What happens here? Well, let's just have it's a bit of a, there's a lot of crazy position, lots of things on pre. First things first, if you take my rook off, I interpose with check. And of course, this position is, well, it's actually
black's better.
Black's better, or maybe even winning this position. If you play bishop f4, which is another crazy idea, uncovering this rook, pinning the knight, you still manage to come out on top with black.
Rook h5, right? Yeah.
Rook h5, just rook takes g8, and
just unpin king d7.
King d7, and you're fine. Alternatively, rook takes g3, you take on e5 check. But again, king d7, and crazily, even though the white bishop attacks both rooks, this rook is on pre and this bishop is on pre, and it just leads to, rook takes h8, rook takes d3.
As Tal used to say, they can only take one at a time.
Right, exactly. So none of that actually works, which means that after bishop c2, it was black's move again, king b7, and it was around here where we really expected Magnus to bring the king over to f1, just to cover this g2 pawn, play f3, rook gh3, and win this h6 pawn. That was basically, and I can't see anything wrong with that plan either.
Yeah, I don't disagree, and Magnus was very critical of his own play at the press conference. He said he wanted f3 and rook g4, but started losing the thread a bit around here. Played rook g4, which is not a bad move in itself, but maybe not that focused.
Yeah, rook g4, a5 and bishop d1.
Yeah, this is
starting to lose.
Moving back and forth a little bit. That he repeated once.
And now
we reach... I could not believe my eyes when I saw this. I was 100% sure it was a transmission error. I believe this is the biggest blunder we've seen at World Championship level for a long time.
I genuinely can't remember the last blunder of this nature.
I remember in the last match, but there the circumstances were very different. I believe it was game 9 or game 10 where Anand, I think he blundered with knight f1 instead of bishop f1.
Yeah, and queen e1. No, there was
he missed his queen e1 and resigns.
Yeah. That was a blunder, but by then the match was almost already over.
And the position was also different. But
I think it was game 9.
Really an unforced error. Let's put it on the board. King d2. People, think for 5 seconds about this position if you haven't seen it yet. Black to move and win. And as it always happens, as you know from experience, when you're making such a blunder, you see it the very second you press the clock.
Absolutely.
And that's what happened to Carlsen as well. Worst feeling you could have.
Yeah.
Complete state of panic. It's a World Championship match, 2.5, and you just made a move that basically loses the game if your opponent sees it.
And the blow is the move knight takes e5, just an incredible shot. Now the reason why everybody was surprised that he missed this, apart from the fact that it's actually a basic tactic, is that he was looking at knight takes e5 so much in the other lines, it should just be every move he should be checking whether this actually works.
Remember earlier when we said, remember knight takes e5, like every second tactics is knight takes e5, right? Bishop h6, always knight e5. I just can't believe it. It's really a straightforward tactic. g4 is under attack.
So rook takes e5, rook takes g4.
Right.
That wins an exchange in the game.
And rook takes g8,
rook
knight
takes
c4.
Intermediate check.
King d3, that's the one line you gotta see. That's child's play, if you even think of the move. Knight b2, check. King moves, rook takes g8. 2 pawns up, game over.
Should be winning this position.
This is winning.
Yeah. So just an unbelievable gift, as they called it in the press conference. And I think, again, psychologically speaking, Anand, he was on the back foot from after the opening. He just simply didn't expect it, but that's not really an excuse given that the motif already existed in the position. So just a very unfortunate moment for Vishy, and after this move he actually played the move a4, letting white off the hook, allowing him to move the king.
Let's make this clear. He could have won the game in one move with a simple tactic, and he did not do it.
No.
Instead he quickly played the move a4. And the same thing happened to him, as he pointed out. It immediately hit him.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I could have won the game right here, right now. Which makes it, of course, incredibly difficult to continue the game. Both players admitted they were very rattled after this. I just can't believe it. Such mutual blindness just is not seen very often at that level.
It's really not. And, well, this idea of a4, a3, it's a peculiar idea, just trying to get some counterplay on the queen side. A lot of top players, in principle, actually praised this idea, whereas Nakamura was the only guy who thought this idea stank. Now, what do you think about this? I mean, it presents another target, but then again, the a-pawn isn't really ever can be touched, and you do give space for this bishop to come out here. It's double-edged, isn't it?
Yeah, it has pros and cons. Of course, it's such a minor discussion compared with winning the game in one move that you could go both ways. You can keep your structure, pawn on a5, and hope to hold this, say it's more stable. But I believe since h6 is bound to fall after some maneuvering, it can't be a bad idea to create some counterplay with this rook a, bishop a4 idea. So I don't mind it in general, but I do mind it since he did not go knight takes e5 winning.
Well, now there was a small period of maneuvering, improving the position. f3 just puts a stop to any tricks with this rook being, and also blunts out this bishop.
Can you imagine the relief after this has not happened and you go king e2 and then f3 and everything is safe?
It's just unbelievable relief. Rook d8, king e1 is a good move, just putting the king on a better...
It also shows Carlsen is a little rattled, right? First he goes king e2, now he goes king e1. It's not the most consistent of maneuvering.
No, it's not. But then again, it's one of those positions where you don't have to rush.
That's right.
So I think he just wanted to, test what black was doing. Rook a8, not sure how good that is. King e2. And now bishop a4 is probably a bad move, but already the position is really tough for black.
It is difficult, but he really should have played knight e7.
Yeah.
It's also the move they mentioned at the press conference.
Yeah.
While computers are thrilled for white here, I don't think it's that easy. Let's say rook takes h6, bishop a4 now. After bishop e4, now you can go back, bishop to c6.
Yeah.
There is no bishop takes g6, as we'll see in the game. This is not that easy.
Not easy.
White should win, but there's always some counterplay on the queen side. If you go bishop c2, there always is bishop a4.
Yeah.
Not that simple at all. You might have to go bishop b1 or a move like that.
And
But that
taking
leaves-
is just bad
Taking knight
because
takes so many targets all of a sudden.
yeah. No, yeah, so he should have done that. But
Absolutely.
his move, bishop a4 straight away, was bad because now after check, the difference is white can take on g6.
Well, 1 second, even
Yeah.
here after check, bishop c6, I believe is the final mistake. After that, it's game over. But the move king a7 in this position,
Yeah.
sacrificing exchange. Of course, it's desperate, but it's not that hopeless, because bishop a8, king a8, all of a sudden this d1 square is pretty weak. Rook to d1, rook a1 is coming. It should be losing, but it would have required really good technique from white still.
I think that's a very, very outlandish idea. I mean, I just don't know many. I know it's a computer suggestion, but really, to play king a7 is a tough move to pull off.
It depends how you see it. I believe it's easy to see bishop c6, bishop g6, and you're lost, right? You're going to end up 3 pawns down.
Right.
So if that's the alternative, then you play king a7, bishop a8, king a8, and you just hope for the best. Rook d1, rook a1.
Maybe he thought in the game after this variation that after bishop a4 he did have some counterplay, some tricks with bishop b3. Maybe
Bishop
it wasn't
c2,
so clear.
bishop b1, something like that.
But actually, there's nothing because after rook takes e6, rook d1, you just got so he's now on 3 pawns on the trot, and the problem is after rook a1, you've just got this cute move king e3, and if you take this pawn off, the bishop can retreat. You can always throw in a check as well. And basically, the best black can hope for is the following ending where he does win on g2, but this has to be winning for white, right?
Yeah, I think white even had alternatives along the way, but even this is winning with the 2 passed pawns.
Yeah.
So, no, it just doesn't work. Black's main problem is his king is always too weak in all these lines as well. If you have to go rook e8, clearly something went wrong.
Well, the final now in the coffin, just a downright dreadful move, actually. It doesn't even fight, is the move bishop c2.
Yeah, that's real.
That's a resigns move. I mean, because now after check, the point is if the king comes to the back rank, rook takes h6, you don't worry about the bishop. Thank you to checkmate. And if you come out the other way to a6, rook takes h6.
You're threatening bishop
and you're threatening
c5.
bishop takes c5, and that really is not worth doing. So Vishy and Anand lost really quite a terrible game, terrible blunders from both sides. One that Vishy will have to forget quickly if he's going to mount any kind of comeback in this match. And basically a gift for Magnus Carlsen. He admitted it. He is also a very supercritical person of his own play, and rightly so. He played pretty badly in certain spots today, but a win is a win, and now he's got a huge advantage. Rest day tomorrow to recoup, and then the day after he's got white again. Were he to win another game with white, Jan, a 2-point difference with. What would that be? 5 to go after that would be... Or you couldn't ever see Vishy coming back from that, could you?
No. In general, it might be too early to say, but this is such a heavy blow. It's hard to imagine that Vishy will be able to forget this, because how can you forget, right?
Yeah.
It's one move, a fluke chance, but such a chance away from leading the match, winning with black, which is so much at stake. It's a world champion title, and Magnus said at the press conference, of course a loss today could have cost him the title, maybe to rub it in a little bit and show Anand the impact this game might have had. Yeah, this was a big game.
It was a shocking moment. I have to say I was absolutely delighted to be part of that in some way, commentating on it live. It's going to go down in history, that moment, were Magnus to actually win the title as the chance that got away for Vishy Anand. However, he still does have some games to mount a comeback. Not tomorrow, but the day after. So that means Monday at 1 o'clock Central European time. Join us here on Chess24. We have all the languages you need to follow the match: English, Russian, Spanish and German. We look forward to seeing you. And remember to check out what Chess24 has to offer. Apart from live commentary, lots of other stuff. Become a premium member, register, and then become a premium member. and look forward to seeing you very, very soon.